it cuts to that evening, and you wake up in the middle of the night, and several of the residents of South Park are updated. I put updated in this.
You were right that quite late, so you're fine.
I'll try that again.
Abducted, I assume, is the word you're looking for.
Why was I thinking updated? That's what threw me off. Hello, you crab people and underpants gnomes. I'm Dandy.
And I'm Luna.
And we're into the 2010s now, and I'm going to be talking about South Park, The Stick of Truth. This came off the back of the trilogy of episodes which came out just before, which was a parody of Game of Thrones, which I believe the saga of episodes was called A Song of Ass and Fire.
Okay.
I know the last episode was called Titties and Dragons because that's by the end of Game of Thrones.
That's what
it's evolved into a little bit.
Yeah, that's all I know about Game of Thrones because I refuse to watch it.
Yeah, that's true. You weren't part of the cultural zeitgeist when it was there.
And anything that gets super hyped up just culturally, I'll go I'll leave it, and if it's actually worth the hype, it'll
watch it once it's finished.
Yeah, it'll be
you don't have the anticipation at the time.
Yeah.
I'm not coming from that perspective. I watched them as they aired and was pissed off by the end.
Yeah, you got
unfortunately. Just for a quick overview of those 3 episodes, it was basically to do with when the Xbox One and PS4 rivalry was happening, and it was basically taking the console war at the time and basically pitting it in a Game of Thrones situation where you had different sides fighting each other. And the idea was on Black Friday they could only win one console. Someone at Xbox, someone at PS4. Yeah. And by the end Xbox was the winner. I don't need to go into depth.
Yeah.
But at the end of that, when they're playing on the Xbox and they've all decided, okay, you're the winner. They're like, do you actually want to play Xbox? We've been playing outside for weeks and weeks and had so much fun. I kind of want to do that. We've done fantasy stuff. Maybe we can do, I don't know, superheroes next. Or we can do pirates. And we can just make up some magical MacGuffin. And Cartman picks up a stick and he's just yeah, like this, and he holds it to the sky, and then just the advert for Stick of Truth pops up, and so it was a tiny tease that then became this game.
It's wild to think the number of console generations that South Park has gone through.
Yeah, it is kind of mad.
Yeah, because I was just thinking, when the Wii came out, there was a whole episode about Cartman freezing himself so he didn't have to wait for the Wii to come out. He accidentally ended up in the distant future.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be so bold, but this was the first genuinely great South Park game in the sense of they got the art style, the 2.5 D look right. It looks papercraft.
The paper cutout style, yeah.
Yeah, and so it looks great. I love this game at the time. I haven't played it in many moons, but this game also spawned the sequel, The Fractured But Whole,
which I have played.
Which you have played.
I've platinumed that one.
Yeah, you did. I might have to do that myself.
Have you not platinumed it?
No, I beat it a couple of times and never platinumed it.
Oh, I've only played through it once.
Yeah, and that one's really good as well. However, I would say Stick of Truth is where it's at, in terms of having a really good plot, beginning, middle, and end.
Okay.
Because for Fractured But Whole, by the end, it gets a little bit too convoluted, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, I guess because it's sort of more directly referencing Civil War. Civil War.
Yeah.
Which is a movie I never watched. But
No. Well, I think it was also, just like the show does, it's really good at capturing what's big at the time.
Yeah.
In media. So, at the time of this, in 2014, Game of Thrones was right in the centre of, being massive.
Yeah, people
with the masses kind of thing. It was part of the popular zeitgeist. Whereas, Fractured But Whole, that was when Marvel was right at its peak. It probably was either just before or after, Infinity War and Endgame. So right at the peak. And then just to quickly touch on, how both of those games play. So the first one is, turn-based. It's very simple turn-based combat. And then the second one, where they made it a bit more complex, but they decided to completely change it and do, kind of a chess battle system.
Yeah, it's a semi-strategy.
Yeah, I mean, they're both strategy, but in completely different ways.
Can you move your characters and?
No, it's literally you got the turn-based. You've just got your wheel. You're waiting for your turn. It's as simple as that.
The combat method for Fractured, I find quite interesting.
Yeah,
because your different abilities affect different regions of the board.
Yeah, it's a lot more involved,
and it's a lot you position yourself for maximum effect, which is pretty. Interesting in terms of how to make a turn-based game more complicated.
It's a bit more just integrated, and you have a bit more that you can do while playing. Whereas just in normal turn-based, just doing one thing, waiting for your turn, hoping that percentages and stats are to your favour.
Yeah,
it's just as simple as that.
Yeah. So okay, so Stick is just standard.
It's pretty standard
RPG.
Yeah, turn-based.
Yeah.
So yeah, other than that, I can start going into the plot, and as you can expect, it's just as ridiculous as the second one that you know.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's South Park.
And it does start very similarly. So you start as a new kid, which you can obviously name, moving to town to escape in a forgotten past. And you're told by your parents, just go out and make some friends because we've just moved to South Park.
Yeah.
And then you basically come across this live-action RPG that's happening between all of the kids in South Park, where it's split into two factions. So you have the humans who are led by Cartman the Wizard, and the Drow Elves who are led by the Haiju Elf Kyle. And the idea is that these two sides, if you know the show, there's kids that you know that are faction with different sides, and they're all trying to get hold of this thing called the Stick of Truth because of its limitless power. Right. And the beginning of the game is you're forced to side with Cartman, who he asks you what your name is. You can type it, but you will always be known as douchebag.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And the first thing that happens is Clyde is defending the stick. However, there's an attack by the elves, and the stick is stolen, and Cartman banishes Clyde for failing to defend it. Mm-hmm. And then after doing some menial tasks just to sort of raise your stats and meet some more of the characters that you know from the show, the new kid and the company, the humans, retrieve the stick from Jimmy the Bard.
Right.
It then cuts to the evening and you wake up in the middle of the night and you and several of the residents of South Park are abducted by aliens. This is where we can start to go into some of the censorship that was in this game when it came out at the time.
Yeah, in the other regions.
Right. So in America, you could just play the game completely uncensored, which was fine. However, there was two parts of this game that were censored in Europe and Australia.
Yes.
So this is one of them. So you get abducted by aliens, and there is a probing section where you and Randy get probed on screen.
Right.
That's all you need to know.
Yeah,
it's as simple as that. It's just a cutscene. The new kid and Randy crash the UFO into the town mall and escape. And then we cut to the next morning, and the UFO crash site has now been sealed off by the US government, and then there's a cover story by the government that it's been turned into a new Taco Bell.
Okay.
And we return to the human stronghold to learn that the stick has been stolen by the elves again.
Right.
And the kid is tasked by both sides, because the idea is that Cartman says, we need more factions to rally to our cause. The goth kids have some influence, go and convince them somehow. So you go and you do some tasks for them.
Yeah.
But while you're doing the tasks, you get brought in by the Drow Elves. And basically Kyle says, why are you working for that fat ass? You could be working for me on the winning side instead. And so you have that... There's the forking path of who you're going to side with at this point.
Okay.
But regardless of what you choose, so you recruit the goth kids. And then with Randy's help, you decide to infiltrate the government site. And you discover that the government plot to blow up the town in order to destroy alien goo that has been seeping out of the alien ship.
Oh, okay.
And then we see them testing what this goo is, like just on like an unfortunate resident.
Uh-huh.
And the goo turns all living creatures into Nazi zombies because that was the style at the time.
Yes.
That's one thing with this game is, and just like the show, it cribs from all of the things that were big in gaming. So obviously Call of Duty with its Nazi zombies.
Yeah.
There's a reference at the end that I won't spoil because it's right on the last page of my script.
Okay.
That is referencing something you'll know straight away.
Uh-huh.
But like if you play the game, you'll be like, that's from this and that's from this. And it also references shows as well that were big at the time.
I mean, that does make... It's one of the things that's interesting about South Park is that it kind of becomes a time capsule for the era.
Yeah, well, it's because it was done weekly. It really does capture
Yeah.
what was big in the news or what was big in pop culture.
So, like, you can kind of use it as a very strange historical document.
And if you know, you know. Because, like, you go back and watch episodes, and even me, I'm like, I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
Then if you ask people that were of an age when that was coming out, they would be able to say, no, this was in the news, or this was what was big.
Oh, that's referencing this thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
My go-to is one of my favourite episodes. I can't remember what it's called, but it's to do with basically the kids learning that Raiders of the Lost Ark is going to be remade.
Oh, yeah.
And they're like, what the fuck, it's a perfect movie, why the hell are you doing that? That's the entire, like, crux of the episode, is about remasters.
Yeah.
Or remakes. And so they are trying to get the money to travel to... They basically want to travel to George Lucas and Steven Spielberg's house.
Right.
But they're trying to raise the money to get the bus kind of thing.
Yeah.
They do, like, a campaign where they'll, like, say, like, stop these shitty remakes from happening.
Mm-hmm.
If you support us, we'll give you a free hat.
Oh, free hat!
It was free hats.
Yeah,
and they thought free hat was because something was in the news at the time. So that's where your time capsule element comes in.
Yeah. That's so interesting because I remember the free hat episode. I didn't remember what their initial goal was.
Do you remember
I
how it
only
ends?
remember free hat.
It was to get like if you know, you know.
Yeah.
But obviously going back to it, like me going back to it, I'm like, that means nothing to me.
Yeah.
But do you actually know what the end of that plot is?
I can't remember.
Right, I'll just say because it makes me laugh every time.
Yeah.
So they do end up going to George Lucas's house, and the kids are like, please don't remake it like it's a masterpiece. I know that you're allowed to, at the end of the day you made it, but there's some things that have become bigger than you, and they have such a cultural, not even cultural, but personal relevance to people that you don't need to touch it. And George Lucas is number one for this. It's the equivalent of an artist that can't stop painting, and then it becomes a mess on the canvas.
Yeah.
And so they do their spiel about that, and Steven is just like, you know what, I think your kids are right. But then George Lucas is like, fuck that, I want the money, and then kills Steven Spielberg. And then it cuts to an island in the middle of the ocean, and it's the end of Raiders where they have the Ark of the Covenant, and George Lucas is in the gear about to pull the reel of the remake of Raiders of the Lost Ark out, and the kids are attached to the wooden post, and the camera's like, don't look at it! And the ghosts kill all like the paparazzi and news reporters.
That's so dumb.
I just find the clip, it's so fucking funny.
Oh god.
And that's how the episode ends.
What do I end the episode?
I know, it's so good. And that's pretty early. That's relatively early. It's when... So South Park, when it first started, I think the whole humour was, it's just kids cussing. That was kind of what it sort of started as.
It was absurd.
It was absurdism and just kids swearing. But like, I think after the first few seasons, they realised we need to actually write compelling plots and actually have themes that we delve into. And the reason why they were really good initially was because they were pretty neutral on their thoughts. Unless something was like very like, no, we are for this.
Yeah.
They kind of tackled stuff from both sides, saying like, it's up to you to decide what side of the fence you're on.
I mean, the thing that makes me respect Matt and Trey is the whole like situation with Man Bear Pig.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Do you know the story behind Man Bear Pig?
No, I thought you were going to say something else. Actually.
No, so like with what initially happened was like I can't remember the name of the guy that they're making fun of.
Was it Al Gore?
Yes, I think you're right.
Yeah.
Because Al Gore was doing lots of like global warming stuff, like climate change, and it's bad and it's going to kill everybody. And they didn't believe in climate change at the time. So they came up with Man Bear Pig as a thing to make fun of him for. Of going like, oh well, it's not real. It's just like if we were talking about like something that was half man, half bear, half pig, Man Bear Pig, right? And then as like more evidence came out that climate change was real and was happening, they changed it so canonically Man Bear Pig is a real thing that exists in the universe. As like an apology of being like, no, sorry, dude, you were right. Like we're idiots.
Well, yeah.
So the fact that they are willing to just go like, oh no, we are wrong, and then just change their canon because they were wrong is like a respectable thing. Because loads of people like take a stance, and they'll stay on that stance forever until they die, until it kills them.
Yeah.
They don't, but like they're willing to go like, no, we were wrong about that.
No, based on what they're able to touch on, and they, despite how absurdist the show is, the fact that they are able to like touch on serious topics and actually have emotional depth in some of them.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to like voice actors in the show that went and did other things. Obviously the story with the voice actor for Chef and then doing the Scientology episode, that's a real famous one.
Yeah.
Like, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It is a time capsule and it's interesting, especially once you know to go back and just see, you can see what they're trying to say.
Yeah.
So no, I do have some respect in that case.
They seem pretty sound.
Yeah. Right. So the person that's just been infected escapes from their captivity, escape into South Park, and they unleash a virus on South Park. So when you're walking around, you see Nazi zombies as just random encounters in the world.
Okay, yeah.
Among many other things. That evening, because we learn that the stick is being held in the high school.
Yeah.
And depending on what side that you faction with, there's an all-out assault on the school to try and get the stick back, and then you're fighting against the characters that you know from the show, the kids, but on the specific sides kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then you then have a boss fight against the specific leader, whether it be Cartman or Kyle, and then whoever wins is like, okay, we're the leaders, we beat you. But then you learn, because when you go to get the stick, that Clyde has stolen the stick as revenge for banishment at the beginning of the game.
Oh, okay.
And what he's done is he's rallied all of the defectors from both human and Rauelf sides, and is using the alien goo to create a Nazi zombie army that he's going to use to take over the world.
Why?
I think because he just want to be all powerful. It's like, you banished me, you motherfucker. Like, I'm all powerful. I'm Clyde.
Everybody into Nazi zombies.
Yeah,
that's a bit confusing.
And so, in response to this, the humans and the elves decide to join up to defeat Clyde.
Yeah.
And then that's the crux for the end of the game. That's the mission.
All right.
And then that evening, as these little side affairs, what happens is you've got main events that happen in the game regarding the humans and the elves and the Stick of Truth, and it will cut to the evening, and then some just innocuous bullshit will happen that will be more or less like, you do a weird thing, and then you gain a power from it that will be used later.
Alright.
This is one of those cases because the new kid wakes up in the evening, and if you've ever seen the Underpants Gnomes episode, he finds the gnomes stealing the new kid's underpants, and after some innocuous bullshit, he defeats their leader and then gains the ability to change sizes at will. Which again leans into the whole, the game is very Metroidvania in that in the world you'll see these things, you're like, oh, I can do that if I have the ability. You go back with the ability, and then you can either find new friends on Facebook, because that's how you gain levels and all that sort of jazz.
Oh, that's right. It's based on like your social media following, isn't it?
Yeah, you're encouraged to walk around, say hey to people, get Facebook friends. That levels you up. You get more skills, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Just encourage more exploration.
Because I remember that like Fractured also has like a social media background to it as well.
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
And so he gets that ability. The next morning, out of sheer desperation, the humans and the drow say, we need to go to the one faction that they have tons of members, but we don't want to talk to them, but we have to. We need to recruit the girls faction. So the new kid speaks to Wendy, who's their leader, obviously.
Yep.
And they agree to join if you do some stuff for them. So one of them is that they're saying, like, there's a horrible rumour going around that one of our friends went to an abortion clinic. Can you go to that abortion clinic and get the documents to find out where this has come from? So you go to the abortion clinic disguised as a girl to get in behind the scenes, which leads into the second and probably to me the more graphic of the things that were censored in this game, which is the abortion minigame.
Yeah.
And then what happens is, when you're able to like get out of the chair and leave to find the documents, the alien goo is seeped into the abortion clinic, and you have to fight Nazi fetuses.
Oh yeah.
That's the more egregious one.
Yeah.
And then there's a final boss against Khloe Kardashian's giant unborn Nazi fetus.
Yes.
Which is the main one. But after you do that fight, you find the documents, and they turn out to all be in French, and so you bring them back to the girls and say, oh, you need to go to Canada to get these translated.
Oh, okay, that's why you have to go.
So amongst some bullshit to get your passport and whatnot, where you go to get the photo taken, and it turns out the guy with the photo is a paedophile, and you have to fight him as a boss fight or some
Of course.
Or some shit.
Because it's South Park.
Yeah. You go to Canada, and what's fun is that obviously South Park looks like South Park, the 2.5D, like the paper cutout. When you go to Canada, it's all like original Pokemon style, like side-scrolling, like Game Boy looking graphics.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Yeah, I remember that the graphics are different for Canada.
Yeah, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
It's like downgraded. It's really good. And then I can't remember necessarily, but you have to do some innocuous bullshit to then get the documents translated to find out who was spreading the gossip about your friend. You learn who it is. I don't need to say, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
You do the fetch quest, you get the XP, and you go home and you tell the girls this is what it is, and they say like, okay, yeah, we'll join you. After you've recruited the girls faction, the Star Trek kids, and the kindergarten pirates, the humans and elves then launch an assault on Clyde's tower, and you fight your way to the top of the tower, and when you get there, Randy arrives because you've kind of spoken to him throughout the game as like an ally. So Randy arrives and says that the government has stuck what's called the snook, or an ass nuke, up Mr. Slave's anus to blow up South Park. And so with your trusty size-changing abilities, you're able to go up Mr. Slave's ass, which is a reference to The Tale of Lemmy-Winks, which I fucking love. And you have to go throughout Mr. Slave's body fighting Nazi zombies and 2 SWAT operatives who just end up in there for some reason.
How did they get shrink? They also had
because they're defending the snook. So... What a job to have. You deactivate the nuke, you come out of Mr. Slave's ass, you can change back into normal size, and you and the gang go to Clyde's throne room. And Clyde, in his boss fight, he uses the green goo to revive Chef's corpse as a Nazi zombie who you have to fight.
I just realised that whole thing with like going up Mr. Slave's ass is an entirely irrelevant aside that doesn't need to be there.
There's a lot of this game that is just entirely irrelevant asides to have references to and just random shit happen. But then the second game has that as well.
Well, yeah, I suppose it does.
It's fine. So no, you have your boss fight, you defeat zombie chef, and then once defeated, the stick is retrieved, and Clyde decides, I don't want to play anymore because I lost, and Cartman kicks Clyde off the top of the tower. And the kids are celebrating, and the new kid is declared the king douchebag.
Right, okay.
While they're celebrating, the government appears, and the chief agent in the government reveals that they actually know the new kid. His real name is Dovahkiin.
Oh.
There we go.
Yeah, okay.
And they've been looking for him due to his special ability to make Facebook friends faster than anyone, because that's apparently a superpower in this. Special ability in this universe.
Yeah.
And the chief takes the stick after the kids reveal how powerful it is, because he's just like, what the fuck is this stick? Because he's an adult.
Yeah.
And the kids are like, they continue the charade of like,
yeah,
well,
it's the most.
Yeah, they're playing the game at the end of the day.
Yeah.
It's like, it has limitless power, and the chief of the government is like, he's persuaded by the kids, and he's like, new kid, join me as the ruler of the universe, because these kids have just told me the stick has unlimited power. But you refuse.
Yeah.
But then traitor Kenny betrays you and your friends and joined with the government, and enraged, the new kid attacks Kenny in a boss fight, and he uses the goo to make himself a zombie, because guess what? Kenny can't die.
Yeah, Kenny's already undead, so
he's
fuck
undead,
it.
but the whole thing is he's a zombie, so he's literally, like, I guess he's even more undead than he usually is.
No, I suppose technically he's a reincarnator he gets reborn every day.
But you do the boss fight, and it turns like you very quickly learn that Kenny's just unbeatable with both reincarnation and zombie powers.
Yeah.
And at the beginning of the game, and I've neglected to say this, Cartman tells the new kid, the only way we can defeat Kenny is if you break your oath that you swore to me the first day that you arrived at my guild, which is that you should never, ever fart on another man's balls.
Oh.
And so what Cartman does is he holds Kenny back, and the new kid farts on Kenny's balls, which causes a white flash to cover the town, curing the zombie virus.
Okay.
Just because.
Yeah, don't question it, I guess.
You just don't question it. Why are you questioning it?
Don't question it.
And then cuts to South Park the next day. It's being reconstructed. And all of the kids, specifically Cartman and Kyle, they're stood by Stark Pond by the lake, and they're like, the stick is too powerful for anyone to wield. And so they chuck it into the lake, Excalibur style. And they ask the kid, okay, what should we play next? And the kid just says, screw you guys, I'm going home.
Oh, yeah!
And then you leave, and Cartman says, wow, what a dick. And that's the game end.
What a way to end that game.
Yeah, it's great. But no, there was obviously so many things that I've cut from that, but in terms of major like plot and stuff that you'd need to know, that is it.
Yeah,
it's goofy enough as it is, but obviously like with all of the mini references, if you're a passing fan of South Park, that are in it, you do meet the crab people as well. They're in that. You do see Man Bear Pig. There's a boss fight against Man Bear Pig. You also meet, because there's like a Lost Woods sort of thing to the far right side of the map, where like it's got Lost Woods in the sense of you walk different directions and you got to learn the pattern unless you get lost.
Yep.
But you do find the woodland critter friends that worship Satan.
Oh.
And that's its own thing.
Yeah, those guys are in that game.
And then the boss fight towards the end of the second game, I remember.
Yeah.
You face off against them with Santa and a shotgun.
Yes.
It's fucking stupid.
South Park is a very strange franchise.
Yeah, it's very good, but I love it. I did replay it like maybe 4 or 5 times for all of the classes. Because the classes that you get are the fighter, the mage, the thief, or the Jew.
If you start as a Jew, do you start on Kyle's side?
That's a good question, actually.
Because you should do, really, shouldn't you?
You really should. I don't know is the answer. That would be pretty good. If you don't, just like, imagine if there was like unique dialogue for that, where he's like, "What the fuck, you traitor?" That kind of thing. But no, that's the secret truth. Again, I recommend it. It's great, especially if you're a fan of South Park. It's a no-brainer, and if you just want a really good. Obviously, it's not like a full-on like RPG, but if you just want a really fun, absurd RPG to play,
it is.
You could go worse.
Isn't it, than most RPGs?
It is, yeah, so. But like with all of the side shit you can do. Some of the stuff there is collectibles, so you collect your Pokemon.
Oh, that's right. It's the Chim Pokemon.
Which is ace.
Yeah, that's the equivalent because it's the Yowie art, isn't it?
Yeah.
Fractured. Yeah.
I don't know which is better. I feel like I prefer Chim Pokemon, but that Yowie art one, some concept artist had to draw Yowie.
Yeah. Like the Chim Pokemon, the only one I can ever remember is Shoe.
Yeah. Oh no, there's Lamchar.
Oh,
because that's the it's meant to be the Pikachu. Also, don't forget Pingin.
It's because every time in the show when the Chim Pokemon shows up, there was always like Randy who's just like, I got Shoe. That's why I remember it.
So no, if you're a fan of Fat South Park, if you're a passing fan of South Park, fucking check it out. It's really fucking good.
Yeah.
So that's another episode in the bag. It's going to be Luna next. And yeah, we'll do our plugs now. Where can we find you, Luna?
You can find me on DeviantArt doing DeviantArt stuff.
It's an art place for art people,
art place for art, visual art mostly, and a webcomic that I've been doing for far too long, but I will not stop. As well as like individual art pieces. I don't know, our channel banners should have our artwork on it, so you can see what my style's like on there if you're interested. Also, my avatar was obviously drawn by me, so
yeah,
that's what my stuff's.
And my avatar was drawn by moi.
Yes, which is why we look completely different.
I'm very Kingdom Heartsy, which is not my usual art style.
No, that's true. That was because it was originally for the Kingdom Hearts thing that we never did.
we don't talk about that. Plug the thing.
That's it. That's me. Dandy, where can people find you?
Right. So you can find me on Instagram under Dynamite Dandy. I do rubber hose and pop art. You can also find me on Instagram under Paranoia Print, which is horror artwork. Similar art style, but different things I draw. And not so much artwork, but more music. I'm in a band called News for Parrots. We do ska and punk music. We do originals and covers. And you can find all of our originals on the place you can find good music. So your Spotify and your iTunes. And yes, we'll have all the links in the description. So if you want to check that stuff out, that'd be ace. And yeah, screw you guys and go home. Later, Gators.
Bye.